Oh, Mo, are you going to go Ronnie and Derek on us? The night that was like your junior prom. The Jazz planning and discretion pays off. And what's ahead next? It's all up on tip-off. Boom, 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 boom. Christmas is over. Boom, 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 boom. But Christmas sucked. Boom, 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 boom. Hey, look who's in first place in the NL West. Boom, 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 boom. And look who has the second best record in the National League. Boom, 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 boom. Hello. Good morning. Nice early morning after a late night. Hope everyone's well. I'm actually dressed and showered, and it's 6:30 in the morning. I have plans. Uh, let's go through a bunch of stuff. I thought last night was the biggest dud ever. It was your junior prom. You couldn't be more excited. She's cute. You're all dressed up. It's gonna be great. Maybe you can get a limo. I never did though. All those crazy things, and then the night's just kind of awkward all night, and you're never really totally comfortable, and you go home. Like, I don't know. It just was a dud. Thought there were going to be big moves, uh, uh, and it didn't happen. Um, so we'll see. I and from a Jazz standpoint, I nothing happened from a Jazz standpoint that I thought that they should have done. As I said all day yesterday on various radio shows, I thought there was about a 5% chance of them getting in the first round. They made a pretty big run to the top of the first round and simply would have had to trade Derek Favors and weren't willing to do it. Then they made a second run trying to get some shooters in the middle of or the late part of the first round and weren't able to do it, which leads me to believe that some of my theories of being able to trade next year's pick turned out to not be accurate. And then they perfectly planned from their standpoint. Um, when you go into a draft uh, from a fan standpoint, and maybe not, but I just want my organization to be really well prepared and to have an approach. I mean, when as a Seahawk fan, they've done really, Tim Ruskell and some others did some really weird things, and you just kind of had to back up for a second and back up and say, okay, were they prepared? There's three things you need out of a draft. You need your team to be prepared. You need them to know the league. And then you'd like them to make the right selection, obviously. But when I say prepared, so the story on the Jazz on the second round pick, Kevin Murphy, is that they first saw him last year in his conference tournament. So the Jazz last year were scouting the Ohio Valley Conference Championship, which is, you got to give credit. They saw this kid and liked him, put him on the list then, went and saw him in person 3 different times this year with scouts, and then he was at Portsmouth and the New Jersey workout. They've sat down and interviewed and met with him twice. So from that standpoint, I mean, a kid out of Tennessee Tech and my organization that I'm rooting for has seen him 3 times and 4 times in person. Obviously, you can get endless film. I like to hear that. The kid can score. The kid can dribble. He can create shots. He needs to get stronger. His draft process was interesting. He tore up the New Jersey group workout. He was maybe the best player at Portsmouth. Both of those were against mostly second round, late first round talents. Then, as he went through the workouts and often went head to head with upper echelon talent, he seemed to be less good. So he went from, at the end of Portsmouth in the New Jersey workout, a late first round draft pick and started to slide into the second round, and the Jazz watched him closely. They weren't sure they were going to get him. But you talk about preparation of knowing the league. I was blown away by this. I, an hour before their pick, so as the second round started, got 4 names that the Jazz were interested in that pick, and in that second round, and they were able to get. By the time they picked, 2 of them were still on the board. I unfortunately can't tell you who the other name was. The thing that was impressive about that is that somehow this organization knew the league well enough and what the picks of the second round were. In the first round, you can sometimes get agents to tell you and find out from around the league. Second round, that's pretty tough. To know where people were going to go and that they would be able to get a guy without having to move up in the second round. They like this kid. They drafted him expecting him to make the team. They certainly hope he's going to make the team. In fact, there were some other players that they liked, but because they were big men, the feeling was that they might not make the team. Which is interesting because then if you're wondering if the Jazz at this moment think there's a real chance that they're going into the season with Jefferson, Millsap, Favors, Cantor, and Jeremy Evans as your 5 bigs, which was last year, they do. And they understood that if that's the case, then drafting a second-round big, he's going to have a hard time making the team. And so they went and found a guy who they believed could make the team. They did not want they didn't want to waste this pick because of positional understanding of what they needed. So this kid can score. He scored 50 against, I think, Southern Illinois. There's a video up there on YouTube that I've thrown out there. I'll probably post it on We Are Utah Jazz today. I'm going to go get some video and watch him this weekend. I'll try to have a video ready for you Monday. Then free agency will kick in. And we'll see. I mean, he's a second-round pick. If he was flawless, he would have been a first-round pick. So there are issues. But I like his path. The path that Kevin Murphy has taken is that he was a Atlanta, Georgia star, big city star. He was on an unbelievably gifted AAU team, which is ironically the rival AAU team to Derek Favors. The AAU team included Al-Farouq Aminu, who's at New Orleans right now, and also included 6 other Division I players at big-time schools. If you go follow my Twitter timeline at Locked On Sports, I think I might be on my Sulia string too. I think I put that out there. I mean, and you recognize names like Travis Leslie out of Georgia. I mean, the NBA guys. He got a bit overlooked on that AAU team because of the amount of talent that was on it, while simultaneously didn't qualify academically at first. So all of the primary schools, which recruiting's happening so early, he wasn't an academic qualifier. So all of the local schools, Georgia, Georgia Tech, everybody else, Wake Forest, and all the ACC schools, went and gave out their scholarships because that nobody was waiting for him to see whether or not he would qualify academically. So he goes to Tennessee Tech. He then dominates. So that's okay, happens. He then dominates at Tennessee Tech, which I like. He stays for 4 years, which is good for your chances as a second-round pick. He's older. He's more mature. As I think if you look at the work I did from 1997 to 2007, second-round picks that pan out are almost all older players. And he gets better every year. And he dominates, which he should. He really should dominate at that point. And he's 6'6", legit. So he's the full size, which is what Kevin O'Connor pointed out. He can shoot. He shot 40+% from 3, and he had some big games. He had a really good game against Murray State in their third matchup this year. He had some not as good games. He looks as though they put the team on his shoulders, and he has a capability of going 1 of 11 at times. But if you look at his shooting percentage, he went from, as a sophomore, 31% from 3, as a junior, 33%, last year, 42%. You look at his assist numbers, they generally increase. His rebounding numbers went up every year. His points per game went from 10 to 15 to 17 to 21. His minutes, actually, his sophomore, junior, and senior year are all pretty similar. He played somewhere between about 1,000 and 1,100 minutes. So we'll see. He's 8'4" reach, 6'7" wingspan, and time will tell. But they drafted this kid with the expectation of a rotational player on the second round, and they were prepared in doing it. So we'll see. I like his progression, and I like the fact they were prepared, but there has to be a reality that this is a second round draft pick, and we'll see what happens with him. He had one thing I like to look at. He had 5 double-digit free throw games in college, which means he's not just shooting from the outside. The night after he had 50, he had 10 three-point attempts and 12 free throw attempts in the same game, and you like to see that. All right, from the rest of the league standpoint on the draft, actually, let's go to Mo Williams. The latest on Mo Williams is that the Jazz, the Mavericks, and the Clippers have essentially agreed to a trade. The Jazz would send their trade exception to the Clippers in exchange for Mo Williams. The trade exception would then be sent from the Clippers to the Mavericks in exchange for Lamar Odom. Now, there's 2 tricks on this deal. Lamar Odom must be moved by today. If he is not moved by today, then his $2.8 million ends up going on the cap of the Dallas Mavericks, and they would have to move him either in a sign-and trade or beforehand if they're going to be able to sign Deron Williams. And they're obviously done with Lamar Odom. And so they are really just simply trying to move him. The deal, now Mo Williams has till Saturday to decide if he would like to opt in on his contract of $8.5 million. However, he really has to decide by today, because on Friday is when the Odom deal has to be done. So as of yesterday, the Jazz had chatted, Tyrone and I think Kevin O'Connor had chatted with Mo Williams, and then Mo Williams kind of balked a little bit. Now, whether he's just running around the league trying to find out what his free agency is going to be and whether he can match the $8 million, whether or not he is trying to force the Jazz into giving him opt out, and then he'll re-sign with the Jazz an extension, which the Jazz are, for all my understanding, probably not going to do, is not entirely clear. But the situation is that Mo Williams has to decide today whether or not he is coming back to play for the Utah Jazz. The Jazz want Mo Williams. They feel like this is a really good piece for them in their trade exception. Tyrone loves his toughness and how hard he plays, and Tyrone wants to get tougher in the backcourt defensively. Mo became almost primarily a jump shooter in L.A. last year. I think he shot about 4% of his possessions as free throws, which is very low. And the Jazz believe that they could play Mo Williams and Devin Harris together. So it will be interesting to see. And quite frankly, I'm not sure what I think about that, but if I consider that our shooting guards last year were C.J. Miles and Raja Bell, this is an upgrade. We just got better, plus growth from within. So that's a step in the right direction in regards to who the Jazz are and if they'll get better. But Mo Williams has to agree to come to Utah. And we've all been down this road before. Mo's a player who's been here before. You would think that he'd be all right with it, but you never know. The Jazz have been very open about that they made a mistake to not re-sign him. If he's still got a personal grudge, it seems surprising. And they have talked with him. Mark Bartelstein's a good agent, and he's doing what he should do, really, which is look into it as long as possible if there's any possibilities for his client to make more money, have a better opportunity. from everybody I've talked to around the situation, Mo wants out of L.A. He was upset on the way he was dealt with there. Um, One that they signed him to be the point guard, and then they signed Billups, and they signed Chris Paul, and then now he's actually been almost usurped by Eric Bledsoe as well. And so he wants out of the Clippers situation, and um, once we'll see how that plays, but he wants out of the Clippers situation. My guess is that the Mo Williams deal gets done today, from every indication that I had last night. All right, league wide, I thought this was interesting. I talked to someone last night. They gave me 4 winners of the draft. Boston, the Sullinger Fab Melo combo, just they thought high risk but really high reward. Dallas, they said, hey, they didn't want to add cap space. I thought this was really interesting. They said they didn't. If you look at their perspective, and this is clearly someone who understands the league more than just scouting of players. If Dallas didn't want to add cap space because of the fact that they are trying to get Darren, and yet they added 3 really nice players in the draft, which I thought was a perspective that most people won't have. I don't think you'll get Dallas being thought of very often as a big winner in this. Number 2 was Miami, who they said, hey, Miami's goal coming in this thing was to not add any salary, and they did it, and they added a future asset. And then the team the other one they thought was that New Orleans, with Anthony Davis and Austin Rivers, really, exploded and are going to be good really, really fast and really, really soon. I thought the Warriors had a good day because I like Harrison Barnes. I like Austin Rivers. Those were my 2 players I said in my podcast with Spence Checkets that I thought would become All-Stars. And so they were able to do that. Toronto did some interesting things. And congratulations to Damian Lillard. Portland really the biggest thing in this league often is Portland really, really wanted him. And really, really hoped to have him. And they got him. And Damian's in a great spot because Portland's going to do everything they can to make it work for him, which I think is just neat to see. And Kevin O'Connor and I were talking last night, and Kevin was on the air as well, just heaping praise on this kid for the progress that he's made in his career, and really makes for a fabulous story. So very interesting to see, and will be fun to keep a follow and an eye on. And so it'll be fun to root for him, except for the fact that he's in Portland. All right, free agency starts on Sunday, I think it is. So we will have the lead stories are obviously going to be Darren, Steve Nash with the Toronto pursuit. From the Jazz situation, they have the mid-level exception, the biannual exception. They are over the cap as of right now. They have the one thing that's interesting is if Andre Karolinko decides to come back, the Jazz have the ability to sign and trade Andre Karolinko. So keep an eye on the Karolinko sweepstakes. If somebody else is picking him up, the Jazz could do a sign and trade with that team to acquire Andre Karolinko. And then the final item, since this is getting long, is Ante Tomic. Basically, the story with Tomic, first of all, is once he signs with a European team, the Jazz are going to have to pay that European team $500,000 to be able to get Tomic here. Then they have to pay Tomic whatever he's making. So that gets to be a pretty expensive player, or whatever he thinks is worth coming to the U.S. Kevin O'Connor basically said it well. Because he makes a lot of money there, and because he's an expensive player, the Jazz will have to pay him. So he needs to blow up there. He did not have a good year. He got let go by Real Madrid. But for it to make sense to bring him here and pay him what has to, one, paying the team, and 2, bringing him in, you have to, he has to blow up a little bit. And he has not done that. He's regressed, if anything. He did not have a very good year this year. So as Kevin said, he makes a lot of money out there, and he needs to explode and be great. And that's when Ante Tomic circles around. As for right now, it doesn't make any sense to bring him. It's the same issue. He'd be one of 5 bigs unless you're letting Jeremy Evans go or you're making another trade, which again, it sounds less and less likely that the Jazz are planning to move Jefferson or Millsap. I'm sure if the deal and the opportunity is there, they might do it, but it's pretty clear to me they're not doing it for the sake of moving one of those because they think they need to clear it out. That is abundantly clear. Summer League roster should be released soon. It's got our Blake Ahern's expected to be on it. Damari Carroll is hoping to be on it. Alec Ennis, the new kid Kevin Murphy, and then some other players will be on that roster as well. And some of those names might be somewhat familiar to you. All right. Have a good one. There is your tip-off for today.